Did you ever look at a jazz chart and think, I have no idea how to play this? I've been there too, but once I discovered the 3 simple rules that every pro knows but most guitarists never learn, the chords instantly made sense. So in this video, I'm gonna show you the 3 rules that I've used to help hundreds of my students play through any jazz standard. So you can have fun making music without feeling stuck on complicated chord symbols. Most jazz beginners miss one relationship that explains 80% of the chords. Once you see it, jazz standards stop feeling random. And that's rule number 1. Look at this song. If you've ever opened a real book chart and thought, what are all these chords? Here's the good news. Most of these chords belong to one key. Here the key is C major. And once you know the key, the chart stops being random. You understand most of what is going on. Knowing the key is like watching a Netflix show that you already know. You recognize the main characters and you know their roles. Which one feels like home, which one moves away, and which one creates tension that wants to resolve. For example, in C major 7 feels like home, and G7 is the one that really wants to go back home. Listen to this. Now let me show you how to learn the whole cast in C major with one simple shell voicing exercise. Now if you want that home and tension feeling to be automatic, you need to know the main cast of the key on your guitar. So here's the simplest exercise. We're in C major, so let me show you the 7 basic in-key chords that you get from the C major scale. Just focus on this. Play it in time. Then you will get used to the order and the sound of the chords, which is really what's important here. I was playing them slowly with a chord on each beat, but you can make it 2 beats per chord as well. The goal isn't just memorizing a list. The goal is that when you see something like D-7 to G7 on a chart, you instantly think, that's in C major and I know how to play it. Now that you can play the chord family, here's the next step so that you can grab these chords the way they actually show up in songs. All the chords in the previous exercise had the root on the 5th string, but you also need the ones where the root is on the 6th string to make it easy to play jazz standards without jumping around the neck. So here's how you practice it. Start on the lowest chord shape that you can find on the string set and move up the neck. You're not always going to start on the root, in this case C major 7, you start wherever the guitar gives you the first available shape. I'll explain why that is important after the example. And here's why this matters. It gives you an actual map of the key on the fretboard. So when a chart hits you with the next chord, you're not hunting or counting from the root, you just see it. This is how you stop feeling like the neck is a maze. Now, if you want to practice this for yourself, then grab the free PDF. There's a link in the video description. Let's start with this A-7 with the root on the 5th string. Then the closest D-7 is right here. And of course the G7 is very close to that one. Now we can resolve this to C major 7 like this. And then we get F major 7, that's also very close. Then we can move down to this B half diminished. And the E7 is right next to it. And then we of course land on the A-7 with the root on the 6th string. Now E7 isn't in the exercise for C major chords. It's an extra dominant that pulls you to A-7. Don't worry about the theory yet. I'm going to show you exactly how to spot those later in the video. Notice what just happened. I wasn't thinking chord by chord. I was grouping things using the key. And that is also what rule number 2 is about. Stop memorizing chord by chord and start learning progressions in chunks. Try to remember this sequence. G, V, 1, T, 4, R. Did you get it? It feels kind of random. Now look at it again. And suddenly it's familiar. That's chunking, grouping symbols into an idea that you already know. And that's exactly how pros think about chord progressions. Because if you try to memorize a song chord by chord, it's like spelling every word out loud, letter by letter. Pros just read the words. So what's the most important word to learn? That's the 2-5-1. Once you can spot 2-5-1s, tons of songs stop being random letters and start being, oh, that pattern again. Let's look at Solar. Even if you've never played this song, watch what happens when we stop reading chords one by one and start reading in chunks. Right here is a 2-5-1 to F major. Then the same idea again, but now it's a 2-5-1 to E flat major. And next is a quick 2-5-1 to D flat major. And finally we get a minor 2-5-1 that takes us back to C minor. D half diminished, G7 to C minor 6. So instead of thinking, that's 12 different chords I have to memorize, you're thinking, oh, this song is basically just a few 2-5-1 progressions put together. And that's why chunking works. You're not memorizing every symbol, you're recognizing the language. Once you can spot 2-5-1s, you'll start noticing other common chunks as well. But don't just try to learn a giant list right away. Instead, you want to recognize them when they show up in the songs that you play, because you need to really know them and it shouldn't just be theory. Now, here are a few examples that you probably already come across. The turnaround, so C major 7, A7, to D minor 7, to G7. It sounds like this. Another common one that you already came across is the minor 2-5-1. So in C minor, that would be D half diminished to G7 to C minor 6. And you also have the 4-4 minor, which has many beautiful variations. So in C major, that would be F major 7 to F minor 6 to C major 7. The key is to recognize them in a song and treat them like one move, not 3 or 4 separate chords. That's how this stops being theory and starts being music. And it is why playing jazz standards gets easier and easier the more songs you know. So now you can see the chunks, but remember, in Fly Me to the Moon, we hit a chord that didn't fit our C major chord family. Rule number 3 explains exactly what that is and why it shows up everywhere in jazz. Those two chords, E7 and A7, weren't in the C major chord family that we practiced earlier, but they sound completely natural in the song. Here's why. They're secondary dominants. A secondary dominant is just a dominant chord that points to a chord other than the one chord. In other words, it's an extra 5 chord that helps you get to another chord in the key, like A minor 7 or D minor 7 in Fly Me to the Moon. So even though that dominant chord isn't in our C major chord family, it isn't random at all. It's pushing the song forward. Look at Fly Me to the Moon. E7 is the 5 of A minor 7. So it's really just there to get us to that A minor 7 chord. And a little bit later, we of course also just have the A7 that takes us to the D minor 7 to get us to that part of the song. That is why they don't feel random. They feel like an arrow. They are pointing towards the next chord in the song. So here's the shortcut. When you see a dominant chord that looks out of key, ask, what chord is this trying to go to? Most of the time, it resolves down a 5th or up a 4th, just like the two examples in this song. E7 to A minor 7 and A7 to D minor 7. This is why secondary dominants are everywhere in jazz. They create forward motion, tension to resolution without the song actually changing key. You're still in C major, you're just using an extra dominant to pull us to the next chord in the song. Sometimes jazz makes that pull even stronger by adding the 2 chord in front of the dominant. So instead of just having the secondary dominant resolving to a chord, you actually get a complete 2-5. And the 2 chord changes depending on what you're resolving to. If the target chord is major, it's a major 2-5, and if the target chord is minor, it's a minor 2-5. It's actually pretty simple. In Fly Me to the Moon, the target is A minor 7. So we get the minor version. B half diminished to E7 to A minor 7. But if the target was a major chord, like the 4 chord F major 7, then you would get a major 2-5. So G minor 7 to C7 to F major 7. And that's rule number 3. Spot the secondary dominants and you'll stop getting surprised by out of key dominants because you'll know where they're going and how they work. Do you want a shortcut to better jazz chords without memorizing 1,000 shapes? So in this next video, I'm going to show you the Joe Pass method, how to build beautiful jazz chords from simple shell voicings, so you can comp and even play chord solos in that style that we all love. Check it out, learn jazz, make music.